One top Republican is admitting that they've lost the millennial vote. Now, this is pollster Frank Luntz, and on Tuesday, he told delegates at the Republican National Convention that the GOP has lost the millennial generation of voters. Quote, "We have lost. It's not like we are losing. We have lost that generation." Well, that's pretty clear. They're giving up. I could have told you that, Frank. Most of the people that the Republican Party appeals to are essentially old, wealthy, white people. Sure, there's a smattering of women and there's some black people here and there, but mostly they tend to appeal to older white males. Just saying. The younger generation is far more progressive, especially since when compared to the previous generation on a whole host of different issues. Now, some of those issues concern the role of government, as well as certain social issues like, same-sex marriage. That's definitely one of them. So, yeah. Now, I think a lot of the economic issues faced by millennials, for example, the lack of good-paying jobs, unpaid internships, there's a ton of those, college debt, well, they've made our generation a bit more liberal on economics. However, Frank Luntz has a bit of a different take on why millennials have abandoned the Republican Party. Quote, "I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, none of the above. The fact that 58% of millennials say socialism is the better form of economics, well, that is the damage of academia. See, it's all the school's fault." Look, let's get some facts out there. Right now, we are a mixed market economy. Now, what that means is that we're supposed to have a mix, a balance of capitalism to spur business and innovation, and socialism to help take care of the poor, the elderly, with programs like Social Security and Medicare. To, by the way, incredibly popular positions, not just among progressives, but among Republicans. You ever tried to convince a Republican to give up their Medicare? Yeah, good luck. And their Social Security, same thing. That's why you see old people out there with hilarious signs that say, "Get your government hands off my Medicare." They don't get it. They don't get it at all. Now, ultimately, or I should say, unfortunately, because of what happened with Reagan, because of our rightward push of our government, we are now out of balance. There is too much capitalism. Now, I know that sounds crazy, right? But see, when capitalism gets to a certain point, it starts to become predatory. It starts to become dangerous. Look, you get the same thing when you have too much socialism as well. We're supposed to have a balance. And that's the problem. We don't have that balance anymore. Our social programs have been essentially gutted. They're not nearly as strong as they should be. So a lot of poor people fall through the cracks. That's not good for the economy. That's not good for anybody. Okay. Now, for example, states used to fund local universities far more than they do now. Because of, budget cuts in the states, they take that money out of education, they use it to fill budget holes, or they just use it to get pork. Okay, not literal pork, but pork barrel spending. Okay, now because of that, well, back when we used to fund those state schools, their tuition was actually much more affordable, right? Now, back in the day, you could actually self-fund your education by working a part-time job. It's what conservatives always say. Well, you want to pay for college? Do it yourself. I did it with a part-time job. I worked at McDonald's and got myself an education. What's your excuse, you lazy millennial? Well, the problem is that you can't just work a part-time job and pay your school loans. Like, yes, you could be very, very careful. There are a lot of people who, do community college. That's a good route. But even so, even if you do that and you take the perfect route, you still might have a lot of debt. And it's still very, very difficult to be able to pay for school on your own working a part-time job. And if you have kids, if you have bigger bills, if you have health problems, then the road just becomes that much more difficult. That is kind of the problem, right? And so that's an issue where we no longer fund schools, universities for the public good out of taxpayer money. That is an example of socialism. That's out of balance. Now what we have instead of that is we have student loan programs, which yes, the government runs, but it used to be through private institutions. Well, guess what? Now the government is making money off student loans. Well, that's not right either. There needs to be a fix in the system. I'm not sure exactly what that fix is, but certainly restoring state funding to some of these schools, some of these universities, well, that will certainly help. Not only that, but you've got to, lower the interest rates on student loans. I'm actually a proponent of free college tuition, but even that might not solve the problem of super high prices. So we've got to find some ways to get that under control. But anyway, I want to point out that the baby boomers and previous generations didn't have this issue. So what happened? That's a good question, right? Now, things that baby boomers and the previous generations also had were more jobs. That included government jobs, which do count. Now, government jobs could be administration. It also could be infrastructure, spending on infrastructure, right? Well, if you spend more on infrastructure, which we desperately need, you're going to have job creation, and you're also going to be able to fix that very, very old, very aging, unstable infrastructure that we have in this country. That's a benefit. That's a benefit to everyone. Not only do you have more jobs, you have money going into people's pockets and they're actually working for it, but you're getting that stuff that needs to be fixed, fixed. It's a win-win. Now, for Luntz, he kind of misses the biggest socialist program that we have. You want to know what that is? The military. Now, Luntz and the other Republicans that are constantly bitching about socialism, they don't seem to understand that's a socialist program. Just saying. Now, where does he put the fault on? Well, as I mentioned before, academia, or more specifically, college professors. Of course. He said, quote, "The number one priority to me is what happens at universities. And yes, Capitol Hill matters. Yes, politics matter. But a whole generation is being taught by professors who voted for Bernie Sanders. That's a problem that begs for a solution." Oh, and what is the Frank Luntz solution? Fire all the liberal professors and replace them with conservatives. Look, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Because that's what I'm about. That's what this show's about. I have a college degree. It's a community college. Okay, I went to community college. And when I went there, I had a very conservative, Obama-hating economics professor. Now, for obvious reasons, I wasn't a huge fan of him or his course. Now, I actually did very, very well in that class. And I think the guy ended up kind of liking me, right? Oh, you're a good student. You're a good student. Well, thank you. Now, just because we disagree on politics doesn't mean I want him to lose his job because of his political leanings. No, of course not. When you teach facts, you teach facts. You can't fire someone for teaching facts just because you might not like them. Just because they have a different ideology, okay? You got to understand, what Luntz and the Republicans are trying to do is that, well, first, they always claim that there's liberal indoctrination, right? Oh, the universities, the schools, all they're doing is they're indoctrinating these young people into liberal ideas. As if they're not actually facts. Because that's the thing. Liberals believe in facts. A lot of conservatives tend to ignore certain facts. That's not a good thing. They ignore facts that are inconvenient. And as I said, that's not a good thing. Now, they think that liberals are essentially, as I said, we've taken over all the schools, we've taken over all the universities with our liberal hippie professors, and we're indoctrinating children to hate America, God, and Jesus. Well, no, that's not true. And in fact, the reverse is kind of true. It's actually conservatives that are plotting to take over the schools. And I actually have some proof here. Koch brothers have been funding these universities. Now, they'll give money essentially to a professor for, say, research on climate change. And look at that. The professor will actually start putting out papers on how carbon, not so bad. Yeah, you know what? Carbon, I mean, it greens the planet, so carbon is actually absolutely fantastic. In fact, what we need to do is we actually need to have more carbon in the atmosphere. You know why? Because it's good for the planet. I actually have a real example, and I know that's a lot of hyperbole, but the Atlantic found that in 2013, a pair of private charitable foundations that Charles Koch leads and personally bankrolls combined to spread more than $19.3 million across 210 college campuses in 46 states in the District of Columbia. Now, you might say, oh, he's actually funding state schools. That's a good thing, right? Well, what's the goal here? The goal is to get these college courses to teach the Koch brothers style of free market principles. Now, that roughly translates into no regulations, low taxes on the rich, and incredibly small government. Government that's not big enough to stand up to corporations. Corporations like Koch Industries. Now, these principles, these free market principles, just happen to help the Koch brothers make extra money. No environmental regulations means that they can dump waste anywhere. In your river, in your backyard, it doesn't matter. As long as they make that extra buck. And that is the problem. See, this is what it's about. It's not about liberal indoctrination. It's about the money. You gotta follow the money. And the money leads right into the Koch brothers' pocket. Okay? Now, as far as Luntz is concerned, it's about not being able to con young people anymore into voting against their own economic interests. See, let me break this down so that someone like Frank Luntz can understand. You see, now we have something called the internet that allows us to have access to information and facts. Your party seems to be against facts. Not only that, but your party is also against freedom. Freedom for LGBT folks, Muslims, black people, anyone who's not white and male and Christian, okay? It turns out that millennials, Frank, they're not interested in you because they have facts. You can't trick them into voting against themselves anymore. That's not to say that the Democrats are doing a better job. Yes, on social issues, Democrats are about 150 billion times better, okay? There's no comparison. But when it comes to economic issues, since Bill Clinton and the neoliberals, the DLC, have taken over the economic parts of the Democratic Party, a lot of millennials are deciding to look elsewhere. Because economically, the Democrats are starting to look like what the Republicans should be and used to be. It's that whole rightward shift, and that is a problem. See, inside the Democratic Party, we just had a primary, okay? And the vote kind of broke down like this. More older people ended up voting for Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton is running on more neoliberal policies. Now, since Bernie Sanders, she kind of tacked to the left a bit on some of those issues. And look, it's still far more progressive than what the Republican Party is at. But nonetheless, they're more, neoliberal positions, especially when it comes to trade. They're all about free trade, which I think we should focus instead on fair trade, on things that don't hurt American jobs, but still allow people to, ship their goods overseas so that they can sell those goods and make money. Look, I'm not against profit. I like money. I wish I made money, but I really don't. But see, that's the problem. Now that the Democratic Party is a little bit more neoliberal on economic issues, there are a lot of young millennials that aren't really buying that anymore, especially with the pick of Hillary Clinton, who's held so many different positions. Now, the breakdown, as I said, is that a majority of Sanders supporters are actually young people, okay? And what's going on here is that this isn't a divide on, race. This isn't a divide on anything really other than young versus old. It's a generational divide. Now, primarily, younger voters are more progressive versus some that are older, that are more establishment. Now, I know, that, of course, that's not the case. It's an overgeneralization, right? Because there are a lot of older people who are very progressive. In fact, Bernie Sanders himself is 74 years old and is a massive progressive. He got a whole bunch of young people to follow him. And he's actually changed the political landscape for the better. And he deserves all the credit in the world for doing so. But in general, that's kind of how the numbers pan out. Hillary Clinton skews more older voters. Bernie Sanders skews more millennials, younger voters. And see, these numbers are really bad for the GOP. It's kind of like what Luntz says. The Republican Party has lost young people, a lot of young people. And I really don't see them coming back.